Joined now by Roy Williams, the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Let's have questions for Coach Williams, beginning on the right side of the room.
It's not working.
It's that yellow microphone, and we'll ask that you state your name and media outlet before you ask your question.
Hi, Coach Ralph Russo with the Associated Press. If I can get something a little off topic of the game, transfers get talked about a lot at this time of the year. I'm wondering if you have any policies that you tend to follow on players leaving the program, any restrictions that you consider putting on players, and do you think it would be easier if there was just a standardization across all conferences, the NCAA in general?
Fairly complicated question. I'm going to try to make sure I can get all of them. I've been very, very, very fortunate. I think that I've had 8 transfers in 28 years. All 8 of those transfers, we gave them their complete release, period, the end. We have such a massive number of kids that transfer nowadays because of everybody wanting instant gratification, and coaches in some way have been blamed for that, and we have absolutely nothing to do with it. It's the want of in need of instant gratification, the culture that we have. If things don't work out, just leave and go somewhere else. I really don't believe coaches are responsible for 1/10 of them, but it is a tremendous issue. Some people could say it's a tremendous problem, and I would probably lean a little bit in that direction. But if a young man does not want to be in my program, and I'm going to try to help him. We've even had guys that have transferred from us before that come back and see games, come back to reunions and things like that. But I've been very, very fortunate. I want to emphasize that. I think I've only had 8 transfers in 28 years as a coach. Yeah, 28 years. The different item now is the transfer for a 5th-year guy, a guy who has already graduated. And that one really is a hard situation. I've got some friends who, and I don't think they'll mind me using it like this, that be below, say, the top 50 programs, and they coach a guy for 3 years, and he has a medical red shirt 1 year, and then all of a sudden you're getting ready to have him for his best year, and then he leaves. And that's hard on that guy. And yet, everybody's doing it. I've had one. And so it's hard. We try to make decisions. Can that player really help us? Is he going to fit in with our other players? And now, can we get him in school? And so we try to answer all 3 of those questions. And the tough thing is we have to answer them so quickly. But the transfer issue is one of the biggest negatives that we have going on in college basketball. Is that close to answering all of it? Thank you.
Next question is just to the right of the aisle over here,
Okay.
Coach.
Hey, Roy, Sam Blum from the Daily Orange. I'm curious, in your scouting and in the first 2 games you played against Syracuse, what you've seen from Dajuan Coleman and how he's kind of done well against your team in the offensive glass.
He has. He's been a good rebounder for him, a good inside scorer, blocked some shots. Dajuan is really gifted. I went up to see him play when he was a high school youngster, and Jimmy came to the practice session too, and I said, well, I'm probably wasting my time, but I really thought he was a big-time player, and you're right, he's played well against us, and we've got to understand that and see if we can hope that he doesn't play as well tomorrow.
We have another question to the right of the aisle toward the back.
Yeah, hi, Roy Archbander, San Francisco Examiner, other sites.
When you're old like me, you've been around, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know the story's been told North Carolina a lot, but the Justin Campbell story and you giving him the scholarship and what he's gone through seems to be a great human interest story. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Justin Coleman.
Justin Coleman, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, you had me worried for a minute. I thought I didn't know all my players, but then I realized who you were talking about. J. Cole had a tremendous accident when he was in high school, was told that he'd never play basketball again, was going to be a challenge to walk and do all those normal things. Then he was involved in a terrible car accident involving a motorcycle, and someone was killed. He's been challenged about as much as I can ever imagine any individual being challenged. Came back and not only played, but played on our JV team for a couple of years. Just a wonderful, wonderful kid and a wonderful smile. The only player I've ever coached that if you ask him a question, he talks 10 times more than I do. And, he's a unique individual, but it really is. You think as a youngster, you're told that you're never going to play basketball again, and it may be difficult for you to ever even walk again. and you come back from that and then think about being involved in a car accident where someone is killed. And I mean, it really is truly one of those warm, fuzzy, good feeling stories about it. Did you have a follow-up?
Let's get the microphone back over.
Yeah.
Sorry. Why did you give him the scholarship at the beginning of the season after
yeah.
2 walk-ons, after 2 years of walk-on?
It was really a neat deal. We ended up having a scholarship. And basketball at North Carolina, we make quite a bit of money. I love our athletic department, but I love kids more. And J. Cole was with us last year, did a great job. And so I pulled him out of the meeting that I was having with the team. And I said, son, I've got a scholarship, and we're not going to keep it in our pocket. You've done such a great job for us. I want you to enjoy it. This will be nice for you, but a heck of a lot nicer for your mom and dad. We're going to put you on full scholarship. And then I walked into the meeting, and I said, guys, I want everybody to say hello to J. Cole, our newest full scholarship player on our team. And it was a great, great, warm, fuzzy feeling reaction from all his teammates. They really got excited. But he's just the kind of kid that you like to do things for. And I think I'm right on this. 28 years as a head coach, I've had at least one walk-on every team and had as many as 5. And I love what they add to our team.
On the left side of the aisle.
Yep.
Hi, Courtney Wren with UT Reporting Sports. In 1968, the Final Four was also in Houston, and it was a very historic set of games and really kind of changed the way basketball was covered. And it was also in the Astrodome, one of the first times to have such a big arena for basketball. How do you think college basketball and this tournament has really evolved since that historic Final Four?
I'm only pausing for a second. You realize that I was a senior in high school. You were about 30 years before you were born. You know, so it's hard for me to figure out how my eggs evolved at breakfast this morning, much less what's happened since 1968. But I think we stayed for quite a while in relatively large but not massive arenas after that. I think the Astrodome was the first one. It was really, and I think also I think the year before us when UCLA and Houston played, and that was even a bigger change. But I think they changed the arenas at that time, probably 20, maybe 30 years later, where they wanted the massive arenas to let the massive crowds of people in. Everybody talks about the sight lines and how far away you are, but the bottom line is you're in the crowd for a Final Four game, and you should be excited about it. But dollar drives everything, and if they can sell 50 or 60,000 seats as opposed to 21,000, that's what they'd like to do. Okay. Wow. I just got a note up here, and some of you guys know this or know this person. That Tom Butters, great athlete in his own right, and the athletic director at Duke just passed away last night. I don't know if I was supposed to be the person to announce that, but I will say this, that Tom Butters was awfully nice to young Coach Roy Williams when I first got to Kansas, and he should be applauded and has been applauded many years for sticking with Mike Krzyzewski when the first couple of years were really tough. But Tom Butters was great to me, so I think the athletic world and the NCAA Tournament Committee lost one of their, I think, initial members and the whole bit, but that's a sad day.
All the way to the back toward the left.
Jerome Solomon from the Houston Chronicle. Hey, Roy, Jay Wright said earlier that when he played you guys in '09, he could tell midway through the game, early in the game, that his team wasn't ready to play, and they went during the week and just soaked it all in and tried to only focus in practice and in meetings. This time he's put on more of a lockdown, that they're only together, they're not out with family and friends and soaking it all in. What's your philosophy? Are you a soak it all in guy with them, or are you locking them down?
Well, we're not locking them down, and I think every coach has got to do what they're comfortable with. And I've been fortunate. I've played. This is our 8th time at this, and that doesn't mean I'm any smarter than anybody else. This means I've had really good players. But I've seen it work certain different directions and seen some others that didn't work. I try to mold into what I think would fit this particular team. In 2005, I thought my club was really focused because everybody sort of talked about they had great talent, but they weren't a great team, that Illinois was a much better team. And so we focused on that, but yeah, we tried to have some fun. In 2009, I had 3 guys basically that came back to school with the purpose of trying to win a national championship, and it was a great, great year. In 2009, we had 8 seniors, 8 guys graduated, and 3 guys drafted in the first round and 1 in the second round, and it was good. But that team was so focused. I didn't really worry much about that team at all. This team is sort of along those lines that we have right now. We went to the Sloop dinner last night. We let them do some things out. We have a meeting late at night with snack, which ends up about 12-course meal, and ice cream station and things like that, and try to give them a last second or two thought before we send them to bed. But we're allowing them to do different things, do things with their families. But, there's not a lot of time. I mean, you realize this morning we got up at 9:30, we had breakfast at 10. We taped between 10:30 and 11:30. We left at 11:30 to go to practice. We got to practice at 12. We finished. We came straight over here. We've been here 10 minutes. We're at the press conference, and we're going to do this for an hour or so, whatever, and then we're going to go out and have some shoot in front of the public, and then we'll finish that at 4 o'clock. So I haven't had to lock them down. They've had to be here. But Jay's doing what he thinks comfortable for him and his program, and I like our guys to experience the Final Four. And Coach Smith, 100 years ago, his whole philosophy was to keep everybody away. And I remember 1981, we played in Philadelphia. We stayed on the other side of Villanova. We got beat by Indiana in the national championship game. In 82, we were fortunate enough to get back, and we're playing in New Orleans. And we're trying to discuss where we're going to stay. And I said, Coach, what would you think about just let's stay in downtown New Orleans, let them realize that we're in the mix to the Final Four. I said, it didn't work last year. And he said, yeah, you're right. Why don't we try that and see if it works? We won it. And that's about one of only 2 or 3 things I ever gave Coach Smith in 10 years. He carried me for 10 years. I think I gave him 2 or 3 suggestions.
Let's go over to the right side, all the way to the back.
Coach Mike Solarte, Time Warner Cable News. You see this a lot with the ACC, playing teams twice in the regular season and then a third time, oftentimes in the tournament. And the saying is, beating a team a third time when you've won the first 2 is very, very difficult. Why is that so difficult? Why is that the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges you guys face as coaches in beating a team a third time?
I think the first premise is you got to agree with that statement, because I'm not so sure it is. If you're better than me, you can probably beat me 20 times. Now, the difference is in our Syracuse game, the games went right down to the wire. Both games within the last 3 or 4 minutes, especially at our place. I think it was like 2.5 minutes, we were up 1 and had the ball and scored and took it to 3. At their place, with about 5 minutes to go, I think it was still 1 or 2 possession games. Golden State this year has beaten a lot of people 4 or 5 or 6 times. And I'm not trying to compare us to Golden State, but I guarantee you in the locker room that coach doesn't talk about, well, my God, we've already beat them 7 times. Beating them 8's really, really hard. So I don't. The best example I can give, 2 of them. One Jimmy gave yesterday in '84. Again, before half of you guys were born. Villanova played Georgetown twice in the regular season. Georgetown, won both of them. All right? And then Villanova upset, but what people don't realize is Villanova was really, really close in those other games as well. Jimmy told that story yesterday. In '09, we played Michigan State in the ACC Big Ten in Detroit, and we were great that day. We caught Tommy's club on not a very good day, and we beat them pretty easily. Now we got to play them again for the national championship. And that's when people were saying it was going to help the economy of Michigan and Detroit. That's my favorite statement. I said, let's let the economy suffer for another day, okay? But I told our guys we can beat them worse. So it depends on the different level, but I think with the close games that we've had, those things don't mean anything. And in college basketball, it's different. I told Brad Brownell one time, maybe that was '09, we played Clemson 3 times that year. We had 3 close games. They could have won all 3 games, and we won all 3. If they had won one of those games, or if they hadn't played us and had played some other team, they might have made the tournament without playing in the play-in game. That's the year they had to play in the play-in game and then travel all night, and it was difficult for them. So I'm not telling my guys it's difficult. I'm telling us those games have nothing to do with it. Mike, sorry about a long answer.
All good, Coach. We're going to go to the center, to Shannon.
Hey, Coach. Shannon Spake, ESPN. I spoke with Brad Daugherty this week, and I do have a question for you, but if you could just confirm that you coached him in Pee Wee basketball? Is that correct?
Started in the 4th grade.
4th grade. Obviously, I know you coached at his high school as well, but
Yeah.
he did tell me that, so I wanted to confirm that. One thing
Let's
he-
confirm one thing, too. When I left, he was an 8th grader, and he was a 5'11", little overweight kid who didn't really care that much. And then all of a sudden, then 5 years later, he was one of the great prospects and great players there was.
He did tell me that one thing that he would, if he had the opportunity to talk to these players, is to tell them try not to live up to the success of the past teams. Try not to, be in their shadow. How have you addressed sort of the legends and the games that have preceded them?
Shannon, I really haven't addressed them yet, but I've told them what I told the 2005 team, for example, in the locker room after the game. We won a national championship, and I was very lucky. Coach Smith came in the locker room. Michael Jordan came in the locker room. And I told them, I said, North Carolina basketball is Dean Smith, Phil Ford, Michael Jordan. But now for the rest of your lives, North Carolina basketball is also going to be Sean May, Marvin Williams. It's going to be the 2005 team. That's the only thing I've sort of gone back in the background, except for the war stories. My guys can tell you, I can tell more war stories than anybody in history. And so I tell them about past players and things that we have done all the time. But I think Brad's right. The fact that this is our 19th Final Four doesn't give us any edge. The fact that this play in Syracuse, and we've already played them twice, doesn't give us any edge. Tomorrow's difference maker is going to be who plays the best on tomorrow's game. And then if we play really, really well and get lucky, perhaps they'll let us stay around and play again the next day or 2 days later.
Staying in the front on the left side.
Luke DeCock, Raleigh News and Observer. The last couple of questions have kind of ended up referencing the 05 and 09 teams, and obviously this team is constructed differently, has different kinds of players, and you could debate the talent level or whatever, but it does seem like, from the outside at least, it's similar to those teams in that they were all teams that were kind of at the end of a journey that they'd gone on. The 05 team going through some tough times, 09 getting close and not, and then this team has been on that progression that we've talked about. Is there, in your mind, that similarity there, or is that just something that we see from the outside?
No, Luke, I think you're right, and you can quote me on that. How many times have I said you're right? That's pretty good. But Russ, Luke, you think back to 05, and we had Jackie and Jawad and Melvin that had gone 8-20. 09, we were crushed at the Final Four in 08. I remember Bobby Frazier walking in the locker room at the Final Four and said, let's remember how we felt last year. And then I think this team has got a single-minded purpose to do everything they can possibly do. Now we've got to get the other teams we're playing to cooperate and help us a little bit, kind of thing. But I think they've got a pretty much of a single-minded purpose, and perhaps that attitude that 05 and 09 had is similar to some of the thoughts that these kids have had.
We have a few more minutes before we'll be joined by student athletes from North Carolina. If you have any questions for Coach Williams, please raise your hand.
And if you don't have any, that's okay.
And if you don't have any, that's okay.
All right, guys, thank y'all very much. Should I wait up here to these guys? He said I have to wait, but it's okay to get over here so everybody's not looking up here, looking how silly me and you look.
I said a lot more polite than
All right, Shannon.
We'll go back to Shannon.
Since we've got you and we've got a little time, any good Brad Daugherty stories from 4th grade that I could text him about and give him a hard time about?
I'll tell you this. When I went to Owen High School, they had, this is a war story, but Brad will like it. Guy hired me right out of college as a head coach because my old elementary school principal told him to hire me. And he said, Roy, we've gone 5 straight years of winning 6 or fewer games. And I said, Mr. Lytle, I promise you I'll change that. And I did. We stretched that sucker to 7 because my first year we went 2-19. But the first kids that I put out there as 9th graders, it was the first organized basketball game they'd ever played. We had to go through that when you're shooting a free throw, the other team has the inside position. When there's a jump ball, you face your basket. We had to go through stuff like that. And everybody else that we played had programs that started in the 4th grade and some of them even a little lower. So that was my challenge, was to try to start something for the elementary kids. So we did it every Saturday morning for 9 straight weeks during the winter as we brought the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to the high school, and we did clinics using my players, and I got the recreation department to give us some money, and I paid my players $2 an hour, and they would come in and help coach the little kids. And Brad Daugherty's group, 5 of those guys came to our first clinic as 4th graders and then kept coming back. And gosh, I'll have to add it up to tell you the year, but probably 82, 5 of those kids that started coming to my Saturday morning clinics were the starting lineup for the Owen High School Warhorses in the state championship game. They lost, but all 5 of those kids that started with us on the Saturday mornings programs were the starters in the state championship game. But Brad was the big sucker. He was Brad Daugherty never gets a lot of credit as the best player ever played at North Carolina, and he was one of the great ones. But I would say he was probably the most efficient player I've ever seen. He led the entire nation in field goal percentage his last year when he was our leading scorer and the focus of everybody else's defense. Every coach before they left the locker room would say, we got to do a great job on Daugherty. And for example, we played UCLA that year, and I think Brad was 13 for 13. So the big fella, in addition to being one of the funniest guys I've ever known in my life, it was really a big-time player. And when he left Cleveland, before some guy named LeBron came along, I think Brad was the leading scorer and the leading rebounder in Cleveland Cavaliers history. I know you guys wanted a history lesson on Brad. Thank you. Are we all right, Mark?
We have a minute or two before Bryce and Marcus get here. Any further questions for Coach Williams?
Mark gets paid by the hour.
By the question, Coach.
All right, ask some questions. My man needs some help up here.
We have one up to the left, Luke.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm not sure there's anything left to ask about Marcus Paige at this point.
Yeah.
But so tell us something that we still don't know about Marcus Paige. As long as we're here.
Wow. Been one of the most decorated, most discussed, most adorned with awards. I mean, he's covered everything from his freshman year to being one of the most criticized to one of the most effective players ever in North Carolina history to accomplish the most. But Luke, you got it right. Do you know he doesn't like to ride in full elevators? Gotcha. He doesn't like to ride in full elevators. He has 8 teammates get on an elevator. He will wait for the next one to go up. My boy's a little claustrophobic about elevators. See, I can always help you, Luke. I can always help you.
Is there one more question that'll get us to the appearance of the North Carolina student athletes? Intrepid journalists out there?
All right, I got a question. Who's leading the Houston Open after the first round? Good gracious sakes alive. Charlie Hoffman. I do have a couple of those guys coming to the game tomorrow, so that'll be fun. Nobody knows it. Was it Charlie? You know, Charlie started putting a lot better since he cut his hair. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to hear that I said that. Charlie wouldn't know me if I stepped in front of him. I'll just wait here, Mark, and I'll talk if you don't have anything. We all right? Yeah. What's the best part of your golf game now? Because I go, Coach Katie and I are close. So now he's going to be 80 in May. So he complains he's still straight in his arrow, but he's lost a lot of power. Yeah, you know, Mark, my handicap, I think I went 3 at one time. I had 5 69s in my life. I shot 70 at Mountain Valley. It's even par, which is the most difficult course, if not the most difficult course I ever played. Last year I never got one at that low 7. With technology today and all the physical therapy stuff I've done over the last 13 years, it's just trying to maintain strength. I was never in the weight rooms more than 5 minutes. What's going on, boy? Thank you very much. I appreciate it too. Did you see Kirsch? Yes. Okay. Yeah.
You want to ask me a question or Coach Williams? You want to ask Coach Williams a question?
Oh, yeah. I try to give him airtime. Okay.
Coach, our conversation about golf is going to be interrupted by
We
the
were
New
having a
York
good
Post.
conversation about golf up here. Okay.
Zach from the New York Post has a
Yeah.
question.
Zach Brazilian, New York Post. Roy, Bryce was just talking about he never thought he would get to this level, coming from a small town and You know, I guess his the summer before his senior year, he played at Peach Jam, and a lot of people started noticing him. What did you notice about him at first? And what are your thoughts about him saying he never thought he would play at this level?
I do remember the first time seeing Bryce at the Peach Jam, the quick jump, the ability to block some shots around the basket, but the quick bounce, that's the first thing. And we were looking for another inside player, and he was very thin at that time. I guess I just saw a guy that I thought had tremendous potential. We recruited him, liked what he said. When he came to our place, his work ethic wasn't the strongest. Didn't really know how to work the hardest. I've said and gone on record, I pushed him harder than any player I've ever pushed over a 4-year period. Strongly criticized him, maybe more than any player I've ever coached. And at the same time, it's because I thought I saw that there was so much more that he could do. I'm not surprised by him saying that he didn't expect this, but I've seen the guy grow leaps and bounds in front of me. I've seen the guy grow leaps and bounds mentally. And oh, Jesus. Here I'm saying all these good things about Bryce, but I've seen him grow mentally in front of him about his work habits, his work ethic, what he's able to produce. I think he's gotten more confidence as he's played. I say this all the time, Bryce was not a McDonald's All-American. He was a guy that just looked like a prospect, and I still want him to work harder, and the day I die, I'll probably send a message to Bryce, you can do more, but it's the kind of thing with me that I've been extremely proud of where he is now compared to where he was, and I'll be even more proud if he gets to that point that I think he can get to. But other than that, he's really a weird dude.
We'd like to welcome Bryce and Marcus. Thank them for joining us with Coach Williams here for the next 7 minutes.
Yeah,
Just
this
a
press
reminder,
conference has been very dull, so I'm glad you guys are here.
you guys need to spice it up for us. Just a reminder to please refrain from any flash photography or video recording during this time. We have our first question, and it's on the right side, but to the left of the aisle. Name and media outlet, please, first.
Todd Gibson, WNCN TV out of Raleigh. Roy, Isaiah Hicks has really come on. He came from Oxford, Ohio, Oxford, North Carolina, and then he played from the outside at Oxford. He's now a power forward. Just his evolution to become the power forward that he's become.
At Oxford, Leo played him everywhere on the court, really did a nice job helping him develop, but he has such tremendous leaping ability that he's more effective closer to the basket. He's never been, the Kyle Korver three-point shooter. His shot is getting better and better each and every year, but he's also spent quite a bit of time in the weight room. He doesn't look like the same individual that he was when he came, so he is a power player, and with that leaping ability, he's really done some good things.
We're going to continue with questions on the right side to the left of the aisle.
Powell Latimer from the Greensboro News and Record. This is for Marcus. You mentioned, I think after the ACC tournament title game, you guys kind of tore down all the signs that were in the arena and took them with you to the locker room. Did you keep any of those, and which one's your favorite?
Yeah, we kept some of them. We didn't keep all of them. We took a little bit more than we needed, I think. But a couple guys got them signed by the whole team and then put them up where they lived, which was pretty cool. And I'm going to do that with the one I have. I haven't done that yet. But I think Toby Igbuna started at one of our walk-ons. He got everybody to sign it, and then because it says ACC tournament on it. And that was pretty cool, and I hope we can get a couple souvenirs from here.
Continuing with questions, we have one all the way up front on the right side. Come on, Justin. This way. There you go.
Ken Davis with today's U.com. Roy, a couple questions about Marcus. One of the evolution of him as a leader, because it didn't really happen right away. And also when he's a confident guy, but when his confidence got down a little bit this year, what kind of things did you say to him to get out of that?
I think Marcus has been a leader ever since I've known him. His junior year, his high school team won a state championship, and it was with 5 seniors.
Yeah.
He was with 5 seniors, but I thought he was the leader of that team. It comes naturally to him. He's a point guard. It's a part of the position. When he came to us, I handed him the ball because Kendall had left to go to the NBA with 13th pick with Phoenix, and I said, you're going to run this thing, and I think you're going to be great. And we'll live with the minuses. Just keep trying your best every day, and you'll get better. I thought he was really, as a freshman, he tried to defer somewhat to some of the seniors, but the ball's in his hands during play, so he is the leader. And I think he did a marvelous job then. And basically, since the first day he stepped on the court, he's been a leader, and as good a leader as I've ever had, one by far. This year, when he lost his confidence kind of thing, I'm not so sure he ever lost his confidence. I think he got pretty mad. And I'd say, "Are you all right?" And he'd say, "Yeah." And I'd say, "You want me to leave you alone?" And he'd say, "Yeah." So that was really intelligent coaching on my part. I didn't help him out at anything at all. He just took care of it.
We have a question on the right side of the aisle.
Jeff Fischel from the ACC Digital Network. Marcus, we just heard about your experiences as a freshman. What do you recall about your comfort level being a leader on that team when there were older guys and you were stepping into the role as point guard?
Yeah, I remember being a little bit hesitant to really try to be a leader, especially vocally, because I was the only freshman in the lineup at that time, and we had some older guys that had been around a while. So I was like a little bit intimidated to try to voice and be the voice of the team. But as they kind of accepted me as their point guard, it got a lot easier. And then by the end of the year, I was really confident, and we started playing pretty good basketball. And, I felt like I could say things and not get any backlash or anything. And then from my sophomore year on, I felt like I had at least earned enough respect in the locker room to be able to say some things to some guys, get on some people like Coach, and hopefully try to light a little fire under them. But everybody's been receptive of it, and that's the biggest thing. So I just try to be an extension of Coach out there, and my teammates let me do it. So happy for them.
On the left side of the aisle.
Ross Martin, 24/7 Sports. For Marcus and Bryce, do you enjoy all this media stuff? You had like 2 days in Philly, you're in a breakout room, media yesterday, you're at the podium now. What are your thoughts on all this media?
We'll have Bryce answer that first, then Marcus.
Well, I mean, honestly, no, I don't. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, coming up from a small town, I mean, there's not a lot of media. There's probably one newspaper. There's not like multiple, and I mean, it's different. I mean, it was a learning experience when I first got here, and it was like, hey, you're going to get hit with a lot of media here, and then with all the other junk that was going on, it doubled. So it was kind of crazy. But I mean, I don't really like it, but I know it's part of the job, and I mean, I do it. So
Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I talk a lot, so this gives me a chance to talk a lot. So that's one thing. That's one thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it, and it gets kind of daunting and exhausting after a while. But it's just part of it. Coach told us earlier, there's a lot of people that would easily trade, spots with us right now and deal with all this to be in the Final Four. So you got to be thankful for it.
Well, unfortunately for some of us, but fortunately for some others, we're out of time. We'd like to thank Bryce and Marcus and Coach Williams for joining us here in the